Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before we begin, let me introduce myself. My name is Basrafil Ilka. I'm from Geography Education. I would like to talk about nuclear waste disposal in Japan. Sakura country, aka Japan, is currently implementing a policy of disposing of nuclear power plant or PLTN waste into the sea, which has been implemented since August 24 and 2023. More than 1 million metric tons of radioactive water that has been processed from the nuclear power plant is released into the Pacific Ocean. This is said to be a process that will take decades to complete. The water was distilled after it became contaminated due to contact with fuel rods in the reactor, which has destroyed by the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. Tanks at the site hold about 1.3 million tons of water, enough to fill 500 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Japanese reasons. According to a BBC report, since the 2011 tsunami disaster, the utility company responsible for the nuclear power plant, Tokyo Electric Power or TEPCO, has been pumping water to cool the fuel rods of the Fukushima nuclear reactor. This means that every day the factory produces contaminated water which is stored in the large tanks. More than 1,000 tanks have been filled, and Japan says it needs the land occupied by the tanks to build new facilities to safely decommission the power plants. They also expresses concern that the tank could collapse in the event of a natural disaster. Releasing treated wastewater into the ocean is a routine practice for nuclear power plants, although critics point out that the amount of waste generated from Fukushima was on much larger scale and unprecedented. Water safety. TEPCO filters Fukushima water through an advanced liquid processing system or ELPS, which reduces most radioactive substances to acceptable safety standards, apart from tritium and carbon-14. They filter the contaminated water to remove the isotopes, leaving only tritium or radioactive isotope of hydrogen that is difficult to separate. Tritium and carbon-14 are radioactive forms of hydrogen and carbon, respectively, and are difficult to separate from water. They are abundant in the natural environment, water, and even in humans because they are formed in the Earth's atmosphere and can enter the water cycle. Both emit very low levels of radiations, but can pose risk if consumed in large quantities. TEPCO will also dilute the water until tritium levels fall below regulatory limits before pumping it into the sea from a location on the coast north of Tokyo. Water containing tritium is routinely released from nuclear power plants around the world, and authorities support treating Fukushima water in this way. According to a 2014 Scientific American article, tritium is considered relatively harmless because its radiation is not energetic enough to penetrate human skin. If swallowed at levels above the excreted water content, this can increase the risk of cancer. TEPCO and the Japanese government have conducted studies showing that the discharged water poses little risk to humans and marine life. Many scientists also support the plan. The water disposal will take decades to complete along with plans to close the plant. The Japanese government said the final level of tritium, about 1,500 becquerel per liter, was much safer than the levels required by regulators for nuclear waste disposal or by the World Health Organization for drinking water. TEPCO said carbon-14 levels would also meet standards. The Fukushima nuclear power plant, Japan, began dumping its second batch of treated radioactive wastewater into the sea on Thursday, October 5, 2023. This comes after the first round of dumping ended smoothly. Power plant operator Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings, or TEPCO, said workers activated pumps to dilute the treated waste with large amounts of seawater. Later, the mixture will be channeled into the sea through a tunnel for disposal. The first wastewater release from the plant began on August 24 and ended on September 11. During the release, TEPCO said it removed 7,800 tons of treated water from 10 tanks. In the second discharge, TEPCO plans to release another 5,800 tons of treated water into the Pacific Oceans over 17 days. About 1.34 million tons of radioactive wastewater is stored in around 1,000 tanks at the nuclear plant. This amount has accumulated since the power plant was paralyzed by the large earthquake and tsunami in 2011. TEPCO and the government say dumping water into the sea is unavoidable because the tanks will reach capacity early next year and space is needed at the plant for their decommissioning. This process is estimated to take decades. They said the wastewater is treated to reduce radioactive materials to safe levels and then dilute with seawater hundreds of times to make it safer than international standards. Even so, this plant faced strong challenge from fishing groups and neighboring countries, including South Korea, where hundreds of people held demonstrations. China has banned all import of Japanese seafood, greatly harming Japan's seafood producers and exporters. The Japanese government has set up an aid fund to help find new markets and reduce the impact of China's seafood ban. The measures also include temporary purchasing, freezing and storage of seafood, as well as promotions of domestic seafood sales. Cabinet ministers have traveled to Fukushima to sample local seafood and promote its safety. Agriculture Minister Ichiro Miyashita promoted Japanese shellfish at the Food Expo in Malaysia on Wednesday on the sidelines of meeting of regional agriculture ministers. Thank you for your attention and thank you for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.